Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Aline McNall, and I'm a Senior Legislative Representative at IEEE-USA. I'm going to give this week's legislative update, and I'll be happy to answer questions in the comment or the chat later after the presentation. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. So it has been a very busy week in Congress. Senator Schumer did introduce a CHIPS Plus bill, which is similar to the bill that we've been advocating for years. It is a trimmed-down semiconductor manufacturing bill of $54 billion, which includes grants for 5 years of semiconductor research. There is a tax credit covering 25% of spending on new semiconductor manufacturing plants through 2026. And we're expecting a vote in the Senate either late this week or early next week, and then the House would follow. But we're hoping for a vote before the August recess. They do go out on recess for the entire month of August, and I know that this is a big legislative push for Senator Schumer prior to that. So we're tracking the bill and hoping for a vote very soon. The opposition, though, is growing, and some trade provisions were not included. Those were the more controversial pieces, but we are thrilled that the science piece of the package looks like will be included, and I will talk more about that in the next couple slides. This bill does compete with a lot of legislative interests, including appropriations and budget issues, the treaty for NATO for Finland and Sweden to sign on, and then also the defense reauthorization. So there's a lot of different issues being negotiated right now in Congress. So this is one of many important ones. So the bill did get a research and innovation piece attached onto the CHIPS Act that we've all been advocating for. And that does include a lot of the provisions that we've been discussing in legislative updates now for quite some time, but I'll go through the ones that were introduced for this particular package. Some of you who have been listening in for a number of weeks now will certainly recognize a lot of these same subjects. So the DOE Science for the Future Act has been included. There's basic energy science, advanced scientific computing, fusion energy research, nuclear physics, high energy physics, and basically the different offices within the Office of Science. So there are components of provisions for each of those little offices or the smaller offices. And we look forward to supporting those as the bill moves forward. Science Laboratory Infrastructure Program was also included, as was accelerator research and development, isotope research, and then a few other provisions, including laser research and engineering biology, as well as some other instrumentation research. NIST was also included in the bill, so a full NIST reauthorization. As many of you are funded by NIST, I'll just go through this quickly, but measurement research was certainly part of it. The Hollings Manufacturing Extension Partnership Program and Manufacturing USA each of those sections of NIST were all pieces of this bill. And we hope that the bill does go through with bipartisan support. In terms of the AI and the advanced computing research and the federal funding for cybersecurity and other really important research topic. Of course, NIST does so many different research areas, and we are very supportive of that agency. So we look forward to that reauthorization passing through with this package. The NSF also had other provisions in the bill. So NSF for the Future was certainly in the bill. Broadening participation was in the bill. That's actually a provision from the House, from House Science Committee Chairwoman Eddie Bernice Johnson. The NSF research security piece has been debated and discussed in Congress, so this is not quite the original text of that section of the bill, but there are provisions about research security in this particular scientific package. The NSF fundamental research provisions were included, research infrastructure, and then a bit about the new directorate at the NSF, which is the Technology and Innovation Partnerships Directorate that IEEE has been advocating for also for quite some time. NASA reauthorization was also included in the bill. So that covers the exploration from Moon to Mars, the Space Launch System, the Artemis program, as well as other space priorities and exploration for NASA. The NASA Office of Science, the NASA Science was also included. And the bill outlines some science priorities as well as includes provisions about earth science. That is certainly a priority for the president and for this administration. So that is included in this current version of the research bill. Planetary defense was also included, as were aeronautics provisions and space technology, particularly space nuclear. I know we have many members who work on that particular subject, and so we were thrilled for that to be included in this final package. They're looking at low enriched uranium for space power. NASA STEM engagement, a very popular office within NASA, was also included in the bill. So that covers a lot of outreach programs that NASA is so good at. In terms of NASA, of course, we celebrated this week the first images from the James Webb Space Telescope. We were thrilled to hear about the infrared detectors and the camera technology, but also the optical telescope and the mirror actually functioning, and then the integrated science instrument module. For those of you who have worked on this, I will say a heartfelt congratulations from all of us at IEEE. We were thrilled to view those images with the rest of the world. On to the Artemis program. So hopefully later this summer, we can have the first Artemis 1 launch. So we look forward to watching that. The successful wet dress rehearsal was, of course, very exciting on June 20th, and we look forward to hopefully watching a launch in August or September. I know that date has been pushed a bit, but we are very, very hopeful. And as IEEE looks to support NASA policies, for those of you who've worked on James Webb and Artemis and other programs within NASA, and actually within all of the agencies, we love to hear success stories. And so please feel free to email. My email is at the end of the presentation, but please feel free to email with examples and exciting milestones that you all are sharing. We would love to hear about them and use those in our advocacy for these programs in Congress. Another large bill that we are looking at the moment is the National Defense Reauthorization Act, also known as NDAA in Washington. We do like our acronyms. So it is a $777 billion bill for FY22. And then the Department of Defense would see $740.3 billion, and the Department of Energy would see $27.8 billion for their national security programs. This is a must-pass bill, so it does have a lot of amendments, which IEEE staff are currently going through, but I'd be happy to answer questions about this one or any of the other bills I've just discussed later on if any of you have specific questions. The research and development, test and evaluation section of the bill is one we care quite a bit about. And so it does include over $3 billion for R&D programs, so we're thrilled about that. $1 billion in funding increases for key technology areas, including quantum. And then $2.6 billion for the Defense University research programs. It does, for those of you interested in microelectronics, it does establish a microelectronics research network, which was actually originally in CHIPS and has now been amended to be an NDAA instead. So we do hope that provision does make it into the final package, but wanted to highlight that as a CHIPS carryover, if you will. In terms of cybersecurity, there is quite a bit of information about cybersecurity in this bill. So it does strengthen DoD's cybersecurity posture. It enhances cybercom and authorizes capabilities there, strengthens the entire federal government cybersecurity posture, and then also looks at responses to threats, to cyber threats overall. So there are quite a number of provisions about cybersecurity, and we look forward to providing information on that subject to members of Congress as the bill moves forward. As a quick appropriations update, also this week, we've had 6 bills pass in the House. So those include energy and water, but also bills outside of the STEM portfolio that IEEE follows. The next 6 bills will pass next week out of the House, and those will include defense as well as the Commerce, Justice, and Science bill that includes the NASA appropriations as well as NSF and NIST. So we do look forward to seeing that pass through the House next week. And then we are waiting on the Senate, but we're hopeful that the Senate does introduce their bill shortly after the August recess and that we can work with the different committees to conference and come up with the highest numbers possible for issues including the basic research 6.1 budget. And that's been a high priority for IEEE, as well as the 6.2 and the 6.3 research budgets. we look forward to looking at those relative to procurement and other issues in the department and making sure that that balance really does support those of you who rely on the basic research funding for your own research. A little bit about the Energy and Water Appropriations bill that did pass the House. So it does rebuild some water infrastructure programs, particularly that the Army Corps of Engineers was working on. And it strengthens nuclear deterrent. So there's a $7.88 billion pot of money for nuclear environmental management, and that includes some nuclear cleanup options there. It does support energy development through funding regional commissions, and includes the different offices within the Department of Energy. So that includes energy efficiency and renewable energy, cybersecurity and energy security, as well as the Office of Electricity, the Nuclear Energy Office, the Fossil Energy Office, and then the Office of Science, which of course is the largest funder of basic research. So for those of you who are funded with energy, with funding from the Department of Energy, I look forward to again hearing your stories about your work, and hope to interact with you as your sections and your companies look to benefit from these funding sources, as we're examining all of the different funding bills in Congress at the moment. So that ends my presentation today. The next one will be August 4th, and I look forward to hopefully having some more actual passed bills to discuss at that next update. Happy to answer questions should any of you have them, and of course feel free to email anytime, and I look forward to hearing from you. I'm not currently seeing any questions in the chat, so I think we'll go ahead and end today's. Oh, I see one. Let's see. Okay. Majority Leader Schumer is trying the CHIPS bill with funding for NSF and the Department of Commerce, as well as the 20 regional technology hubs. What is the threat? Will that threaten the CHIPS bill? So in terms of the CHIPS negotiation, excellent question. Thank you for asking that. The innovation package was a bipartisan package, and so the fact that the research package was included in CHIPS, I think is a plus for both research, but also for the bill passage. A lot of negotiations have gone through Congress with respect to research provisions in each of these agencies, from the tech hubs and the Department of Commerce, as well as the NSF that you mentioned in your question. And so I think that the fact that this research provision did end up being tacked on to the CHIPS bill in the Senate will help the bill move forward, because it does, there's a lot of bipartisan and bicameral compromise there already in that package. And the Senate and the House did negotiate for quite some time over that. I think that there's still some negotiations that are ongoing. So we will see exactly what ends up happening with respect to the hubs that you mentioned in your question and other provisions in the Department of Commerce. But in general, the CHIPS bill is being negotiated at the senator to senator level, and then between the House and the Senate still. And I think that the fact that the research provision is added onto it is just another example of the bipartisan nature of this bill. I think members from both sides of the aisle and in all sectors of Congress do support manufacturing for chips. There are some questions about, do we already have enough hubs, and what are the tax incentives? So really, there's a lot of tax questions with respect to the bill. The tax breaks and the tax incentives have been kind of a sticking point. But in terms of the CHIPS bill itself, there's a lot of bipartisan bicameral support for it. I do see another question. Which IEEE priorities are highest for the month of August if we can meet with Congress or congressional staff? Excellent question, Brendan. Brendan's question is next. Excellent question. I would say that in August, Congress is actually home. And so for those of you who live further away from DC, there's opportunities to meet in the congressional district because the members of Congress and the senators are home during the month of August. And so in terms of legislative issues, IEEE will be kind of having conversations with the Hill about things like the defense reauthorization bill and then also the different appropriations bills. And so those would be priorities, at least from our standpoint. But in terms of August, I would say that the legislative calendar is literally just no one is in session. And so it's a lot of quiet conversations preparing for September and October, but also the post-election period. So happy to hear from you all. If you all have priorities or if there are technical issues that you're facing that need, legislative solution, certainly happy to hear from any of you with your thoughts on issues that you would like to raise for sure. What is the likelihood that the House will also act favorably on, I'm assuming Brendan's question is on chips. I would say that we do have a commitment from the Speaker. She seems in favor of this bill passing the House. Senator Schumer has obviously been negotiating with Speaker Pelosi for quite some time. And I think that there's the negotiation is still ongoing, right? Because a lot of the Progressive Caucus maybe didn't quite get their priorities in the bill, and the Senate did move the secondary chips package and the research package rather quickly. The negotiations are kind of stalled, and so there's a lot of politics in play at the moment. So we're kind of certainly discussing with the House what their next steps are. But in general, are waiting to see kind of where they are in the next week or so. I see a question from Steve Welby. There was a $10 million added in the House NDAA DOE-wide RDT&E account for the next G described in 5G communications. Is there anything in here of interest to IEEE members? I haven't heard from our membership on the next G within NDAA. I think in terms of 5G communication, I know that the Hill is very enthusiastic about getting to 5G, but also increasing broadband access in general. So I know that that's an issue that IEEE members can certainly help the Hill both understand and also make sure that the legislation reflects what would be best for ensuring 5G and beyond communication technology, as well as just access to broadband in general. But in terms of the provisions, I don't know that we've necessarily heard from members on that specific one yet. Let's see. I'm not seeing any further questions. So as Jonathan mentioned in the chat, my email is a.mcnall@ieee.org, and I'd be happy to answer further questions over email should any of you have them. And I certainly appreciate your joining us today and look forward to having a further chat on August 4th.
My superpower is engineering. I've been a roboticist almost all my life now. I think engineering is just as creative as the arts. Engineers, we solve problems. It impacts the world. It makes a difference. Without IEEE, I don't think I would have the network that I have. Anyone can get involved with IEEE-USA at any time. There's an immense amount of value for anyone at any career stage.